What's up, you guys? Welcome back to 10 Million in 10 Months. I'm Kim, CEO and co-founder of Listener Brands, where we own CurlMix and 4C Only. Today, you guys, I'm going to be giving you a recap of one of the most amazing experiences I have had in a long time. And this video is not sponsored. I went to CEO Spring Break by Morgan DeBaun from her Work Smart program. And I got to hang out with, maybe 150 or so Black CEOs. 90% of the room, 90% of everyone was making like over $1 million. I want to say maybe 10 to 20% were making over like 15 to 20 million or more. And it was literally the most incredible experience. Most people were like in their 30s, but people ranged from like late 20s to early 40s. So a couple 50-year-olds sprinkled here and there. Everyone was amazing, y'all. I'm going to keep saying amazing, incredible, just something I hadn't experienced before. Because everyone was so open and just honest and vulnerable and willing to share. And they were like young Black folks, like making millions of dollars. Like, I have not been in a room like this before. I've been something similar with Traffic Sales and Profit, which is still an amazing community and an amazing experience. But it was something to be also around my age group and to see something like this, and for people to come from all over the world, different sectors, people who were fluent in multiple languages. People were in finance, they were in tech, they were in consumer product goods, they were in research, they were just literally everything. So I will definitely be going back, but I wanted to give you guys 3 takeaways, 3 things I learned at CEO Spring Break. Morgan DeBaun is the founder of Blavity, and she owns Afrotech and Travel Noir and a few other brands, Shadow and Act, and she has a Work Smart program where she kind of builds a community of entrepreneurs. At this event, everyone was so open and so forthcoming and willing to share and help and give to one another. And some of them have been friends for like a decade. So that was kind of wild. I was like, oh my gosh, you guys all knew each other and you guys came up together making this kind of money together. I'm like, there's something to be said about peer-to-peer networking. But I have 3 takeaways from this event. And my first one and my favorite one is that, and I believe this with all of my soul, Black people need to talk about money more openly. I'll say it again. Black people need to talk about money more openly. If you don't talk about money, you'll never learn how to get it. And in this room, you could ask people their revenue, how much they're making, if they're profitable, if they're not, and you weren't going to get I don't feel comfortable sharing that. Not a single time did I talk about money with someone where they were like, I don't want to share that with you. It was like, girl, we doing this, this, and that, but we made a mistake here, here, and here. We lost money doing this. We made money doing that. What are you thinking? How'd you do it? I met people making $2 million a month. I met people making $2 or $3 million a year. And it didn't matter. They were not hiding it because they knew that in order to get what they got, they had to talk about it. I was talking to people about how much money they were raising, how much they had raised, how big their board was, how small their board was, if they want people on their board, if they don't want people on their board, if they are, how many employees they have, how big their team, how big their personal team, right? Because a lot of us, when we get busy making the upper millions of dollars, we don't have the time to clean our houses, to do our laundry, to watch our kids all day, to literally just do everything because you're taking care of your 50 employees and you're also taking care of your health and your this and your that. So there was so much that we don't talk about in public that we get to talk about in a room together. But my favorite thing that we don't talk about typically is money. And for me, I don't like being in communities where people don't like to talk about money because that means it's going to automatically limit how much more I can make. And if I can make less money, and it's not, making money is not just for me, it's for my team, right? If we can make more money in the company, we can give everybody better raises. We can let them buy better houses, send their kids to better schools, provide better food for their families. So making more money in my business is not Kim wants to be rich type of thing. It's like we can all eat better if we can make more money. So Black people need to talk about money more openly, honestly, and without shame and without the fear of sharing what you have with other people, thinking that it's going to cause you to lose something from yourself. Because that's usually what it is. We don't like talking about money because we're afraid we're going to lose the money that we have. And because many of us have so little, we cling so tightly to the thing that we have. And honestly, in a way that shrinks it, in my opinion. If you cling so tightly to it, you won't give it room to grow, to get bigger. And you're going to miss your blessings because you're not willing to talk openly about what you have and what you need, honestly. My second takeaway is that when you meet an expert, do more listening than responding. we met a lot of Morgan's network. So we met a lot of her like advisors, people who she's really close to, and she kind of brought them on stage to share. So Mikkel Moore, who's Janelle Monáe's manager, he was there. She brought Savitra, who's a good friend of hers, who's raised, I don't know, over $12 million, I think, for her startup. She had this lady named Olivia Fox Cabane, who is a personality psychologist. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. But she's an expert in teaching you how to be charismatic. And she was honestly one of my favorite people. She's openly autistic and talks about it. But she's had to learn how to be charismatic. And so in that, she's learned or become an expert on people and how to present charisma. And most people are like, what? What do you mean learn to be charismatic? You just either have it or you don't. And she kind of dispels that myth altogether because she has autism. So you would think that she wouldn't be able to be captivating or to engage an audience or know how to talk to someone to get what she wants. And she definitely does. There's an art to it, and you need to learn that art as well if you want to fundraise for your business, if you want to speak on stages. And so she basically was kind of like, you would stand up and she'd almost pick you apart and tell you like what you were doing that was not charismatic and how to get better. And for some people, that could be a nightmare because she's essentially sitting in front of you telling you like, don't sit like that. Don't speak like that. Speak like this. Don't say it that way. Don't make that smile like that when you look at me. Don't wink your eyes like that, you know? And so most people are like, oh my gosh, she's attacking me. But it's like, no, if you're trying to fundraise, if you're trying to elevate your business, elevate your speaking, the way you are now isn't quite good enough. And if you want to achieve something more, then you might have to present another version of yourself because we all have different versions of ourselves, right? The version that my husband gets of Kim is way more authentic and raw than the version of Kim that I present maybe walking down the street. I maybe don't want the stranger to know me as intimately as my husband does, right? So the same thing goes for speaking to audiences and meeting new people and fundraising for your business. So what do I mean? How did she help you be more charismatic? So I'll give you an example. We were on the bus with her on the way to the African American History Museum for music in Nashville. And we just started kind of like spitballing. She started telling us like her background and her history and how she studied psych and behavioral sciences, and then also how she wrote a book called The Charisma Myth. And then we started asking her questions like, how do you build charisma? How do you know if you have it? We started telling her about team problems that we have with our team. So one problem I told her that I have is that sometimes I'll give my team, like I want to brainstorm with them and I'll present an idea. And before we've like settled on it, sometimes they'll go and implement it right away. And it's not quite what I asked for because I thought we were just brainstorming, but my team took it as Kim wants this done. We need to do it now. And she said, Kim, that's because you have what we call in science, the voice of God. I was like, what? The voice of God? What do you mean? And she's like, well, when you speak, you end your sentences with a low tone. So I'll give you an example. She was like, if I'm talking to my husband, I could say, honey, did you check on the kids? And if you end with the low sound, did you check on the kids? It sounds like a command. So my husband will get up and he'll go and check on the kids. But then I'll find out later that he had a big project or he was in a big meeting, right? Versus if I had said, honey, did you check on the kids? It sounds like more of a question or more of a chance for him to be like, oh, babe, I've got this going on. I can't do it. And women who speak with that high-pitched voice oftentimes are perceived as younger or less mature and often get less respect. But people who end their sentences on that low note, right, they get more respect and they call it the voice of God. So she said, Kim, if you're presenting all of your ideas like this, people are going to take it as a command. And I was like, oh my gosh, one of my closest friends told me, Kim, you present all of your ideas and opinions as facts, but they're just your ideas and opinions. And she didn't know about this voice of God psychology, right? She just knew me as a friend and how I speak. And basically, Olivia Fox Cabane basically said, Kim, you could be naturally intimidating because you are an alpha female and you have to give people an out when you speak. So you might want to say, hey, I'm just presenting an idea. See how I landed on that low sound, an idea. I'm presenting an idea and I would love to know if you agree with this, if you don't, give them a chance to say no and disagree with you first. And I thought it was so funny. And I was like, well, I work with a lot of friends and family and people tell me you shouldn't, but I feel like I have great working relationships with my best friend and my husband and, his godmom, or our godmom. And she was saying, well, one, you probably don't railroad them because they're your family. But two, she said that they probably are not blinded by your charisma. And because they're not blinded by your charisma, they're not afraid to tell you when you're wrong. And so you end up getting a really, fruitful company from that and a lot of success because you have someone to balance your alphaness, if you will. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is such great feedback, right? But there are other people sometimes who don't like to hear those kinds of things. So they're going to say, well, I disagree with you. Well, I'm not like that. Well, why would you say that? And they're so focused on that person being wrong versus listening to the actual expert in the room and saying, let me go deeper. Is that true? Is this a good thing? And whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, do I need to change it, or how do I improve the relationships around me even though I am this way, And so I tried to do more listening and accepting of what she was saying than fighting. And I feel like some people don't feel that way. But that was a huge takeaway for me. You have an expert in the room, do more listening than responding. I also asked her a ton more questions about like parenting, like how does my personality show up in parenting? What are some things pitfalls that I can avoid, right? Well, how does it show up in marriage? What if my husband is this way? And so I got so much good life feedback. And this woman, she coaches people like Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. Really, I don't know if it was Jeff Bezos, but like really like famous people. And she teaches them how to be more charismatic. So she was just doing this as a labor of love because she felt like she could give back to people of color and repay any small slither of debt that her people owes our people. These are her words, not mine. She wanted to do that. So I spent a lot of time talking to her because I know I could not afford to talk to her one-on-one in any other time. So I definitely used that. It was a huge takeaway for me. And I feel like I got some advice for life that I'm going to keep with me forever. I used to be sad that I didn't have a daughter, but she said it was probably good for me specifically because that relationship might be very difficult for us to have, given that she might always be trying to meet my expectations or live up to who I am as a woman. And honestly, she's like, Kim, you set a ridiculous bar. I was like, dang. All right, then. I guess I'm glad I got 2 boys. So that was really good. And then the third takeaway that I have is peer-to-peer networking is grossly underrated. A lot of times we're always trying to network up. So we're trying to meet somebody who's 2 or 3 levels ahead of us. So let's say, for example, I wanted to network. And I'm going to use her as an example just because she's the one who I kind of got this from, Issa Rae. She was saying how like we usually don't want to like network with our friends who are doing the same amount of revenue, same amount of businesses or same size business as us because we are trying to get to that next level. So we think we need to network with the person who's ahead of me. So like Stitch Fix founder Katrina Lake, or like the founder of Bumble, or the founder of Figs, or and I'm mentioning like companies that have IPO'd, led by women. But I got probably the most value this trip from networking with a friend of mine from my topicals, Alameda. She ended up making an intro to an investor for me, which is excellent because I'm at this point where I really need certain kinds of investors who write certain kinds of checks in this next phase of my life. And she and I talked for probably a total of at least a couple hours on the trip. So she's in Sephora, killing it. I'm direct-to-consumer online, killing it. And we were able to trade secrets. And we're not technically in the same industry because she's in skincare and I'm in hair care. But we're able to help each other and provide valuable information and feedback in real time versus like, hey, me trying to beg to get on the calendar of the founder of Figs or Olaplex or who knows and pick their brain, right? Because that doesn't really serve them. That only serves me. And sometimes when people have that level of success, what they did to get to where they are is now going to be what you're going to have to do to get to where you want to be, right? That like they did it, it's been done, and there's probably going to be a new way that you have to do it to get there. So I thoroughly enjoyed my experience at CEO Spring Break. I probably feel like I would have paid double for the kind of value that I got. That's not everybody, but that was me. I felt like I wish I could have stayed longer. I wish I had brought Tim. And I would love to encourage other CEOs who are interested in having that similar experience, who are open-minded and want to learn from other people, like-minded people. Definitely attend. One of the top events I've been in a long time. Thank you so much for watching 10 million in 10 months. Stay tuned for my next video. We're going to be talking about my revenue goals and our revenue check-in. It's the end of Q1, so you guys finally get to see how far we are along on this 10 million in 10 months journey. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.